Sports Show is on the air. Mike, Max, Lavelli, Neil finally back with us after a hiatus. Lou Nanny, Sid Hartman.
Who wants him back here?
I do.
Everybody.
I do.
He's all dressed up. He's got a date after
Sid, this show needs more female viewers. That's why I'm here.
He's a guy that reported, he and Ricey reported that the Twins were terrible. They have no bullpen. They have no starters. They have no nothing. And the team has got the best home record.
I don't remember you being overly optimistic.
6 weeks into the season,
Sid.
Sid.
The same thing because I listened to them.
Oh, so that's why you fell victim to it.
6 weeks into the season, Sid.
That'll teach
Calm
you.
down. Just calm down.
We'll get to the Twins in a minute, but let's start with the Minnesota Wild. Did you think it was a successful season or not? It's like the Super Bowls. The Vikings would go to the Super Bowls, then they'd lose, and everybody thinks it was a bad season.
I just talked to my good friend Louis Nanny just a few minutes ago, who knows more about hockey than the writers in this town have if they go to school for hockey for 10 years.
Yep.
We ran more lines on the Wild when they were hot than we've ever run on any team, including the Vikings when they were in the Super Bowl. So they were the greatest team in the world. And then they turn around and rip them. They're the 11th best team in the hockey.
Well, you were the one that said it was not a good season because the way they lost to Chicago.
I said, I didn't say it was a good season. I said what I wrote for tomorrow. People remember what happened at the end. You win the division 4 times like the Vikings did, and they lose the Super Bowl. These guys had a fantastic year, and then they lose in the playoffs, and everybody rips them.
I get what you're saying, but I think people are smarter than that, Louis. I think they can both be disappointed and appreciative at the same time.
And I think most of the Wild fans realize that and know that. The Wild had a tremendous season. It was exciting. They had their ups and downs. They had to come from nowhere to make the playoffs. They had the most exciting run of anybody's had in years. And Dubnyk came through for them when he had to into the playoffs. And then they won the playoffs. They upset a team that many picked to win the Stanley Cup, the St. Louis Blues. So there was a lot of euphoria. Many of us thought that they would beat Chicago and could beat Chicago, and they didn't. So now a lot of people in the media, like he says, are really disappointed. But I think the fans still realize the Wild had a great year and they're a fun team to watch.
I've heard. I got some big hockey fans go to every game. And they're ripping Valak, and they're ripping this guy, and they're ripping that guy. And they know nothing about hockey either, but they think they're hockey experts. Like I've told you a million times, a hockey guy is the most loyal sports fan there is, and they think they know about everything.
And that's the problem.
Yeah.
Well, Lavelle, you grew up in Chicago. Where do the Blackhawks rank there?
Oh, well, you know, they've won twice in the last 5-6 years.
Oh, yeah.
So, you know, I grew up when Stan Mikita and then later on Steve Laumer and Alka Secord and all those guys. And once the Hawks games were put on television, because when Wirtz was alive, they did not put the games on local TV. But the games are on TV now, more access to them, and it's been a big hockey hotbed now. So
yeah, I was telling Louis, I was at a wake for Tommy Collins' brother. His ice show played in the Chicago Stadium.
Yep.
Bill Wirtz was there, and I said, "You got to help us get hockey again." He says, "Over my dead body." But like he said, the old man wouldn't do nothing. He was an old-time operator. The kid took over,
Peter.
put it on TV.
Rocky.
And
Rocky.
It's a gold mine now.
Yeah, and they get 20,000 a game, Louis. Of course, they got a good team too.
Yeah. Well, they ever since Rocky's taken over, he has made the adjustments they had to make. They're on television. They got a fanatical following all the time. They sell out all the games. They've had a good team. They've won 2 Stanley Cups. So it's a sport there that's thriving in Chicago, and everybody loves them.
But you and I were talking on the driving over here today. I mean, it's not just about getting the #1 draft pick overall isn't the key. It's who's available at #1, and they got Kane. And that made a big difference.
They had Taves and Kane.
Yeah, back to back.
1 and 2 back to back, and that's exactly right. It's who's available when you're picking, and those 2 guys are sensational, and they're, you know, the core of the team. And then they made a great pick on Duncan Keith too. So you got arguably the best defenseman in the league, and then you got 2 of the top forwards in the league.
Louis, when you were general manager, You were playing the Blackhawks in a playoff game, and it was in the afternoon because they had something more important at night. They had nobody there. And what's turned that thing
In
around?
Chicago?
Where, in Chicago?
Yeah.
I never ever remember being in Chicago Stadium when we played them, the North Stars, in a playoff game that was empty. It was crazy.
Yeah.
It was an afternoon game.
I don't care if we played them at 6 in the morning. It would have been full.
Well, maybe I'm wrong about that.
Yeah.
But it was an afternoon game.
Yeah.
On top of it, they got a minor league team in there that draws big, don't
Yeah,
they?
yeah.
That's a good-
Chicago Wolves.
Where do they fit in the menu in Chicago sports? Where do the Blackhawks rank?
Well, I think it ebbs and flows since we're in the season now, and the United Center is rocking because the Bulls and the Blackhawks are both pushing for a title. And I would say that the Hawks are. It's hard to have the Bulls, the White Sox, Cubs, and Bears behind the Hawks. So I would say the Hawks would probably be fifth on that
Yeah,
list.
because those teams are just so. I mean, maybe not the White Sox,
Right.
but the Cubs, the Bulls, and the Bears are. They are who they are.
Exactly. You know, the White Sox have been on the skates a little bit. They won in 05, and they're still trying to bounce back. The Cubs, you know, the lovable Cubs, they are one of the top teams in the market. And when the Bears are winning, there's no crazier town in America than Chicago.
Louis, again, outsider looking in that never played hockey in his life, it just looked to me or felt to me like Chicago reminded the Wild that while the Wild are good, Chicago's a cut above with their high-skilled players. Am I oversimplifying this thing?
No, the Chicago best players are better than the Wild's best players.
Yeah.
And the Chicago best players are among the best in the league. So there is a difference there. And that's why you got to make up for it with depth, with goaltending, with overall intensity and stuff like that. But if you look at the core group of players, Chicago's core group has been good enough to win 2 Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
So you know they're as good as there are.
I want to ask you a question about that when we come back. Talking Wild, Twins, and much more. Stay with us.
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Cambria, makers of quality quart surfaces. Ticket King. For the best price on tickets anywhere, try Ticket King. And Soundpoint Audiology. Life is worth hearing.
Quality. It's the result of shared values. The joy found in an honest day's work. Respect for true American craftsmanship and the need, not the want, to get things right. It's the result of remembering your roots, being forever humbled by how far you've traveled and forever hungry to push on further. Quality is a result. Quality is who we are. Cambria. Family owned, American made.
You're watching CW-23.
Hey, Steve Terry here. We've been talking about bad drivers for years. It's hard to believe some people still don't get it. So what we decided to do is send some of our safe driving friends out to videotape what some of these bad drivers are still doing. If you're looking in the rearview mirror for your makeup, you can't see what's in front of you. Here's an idea. Why not leave your phone on the floor until you can safely pull over? This guy needs to focus on the road, not his music. If you've been hurt by a bad driver, call us right now at 612-TSR time.
The Dodge brothers have always believed that by taking things further and pushing the limits, you can create a brand that grows as fast as it drives. One drive and you'll discover why Dodge is America's fastest growing performance brand. Join us now during the Dodge Drive and Discover event. Now get a low mileage lease on the 2015 Dodge Start SXT for $149 a month for well-qualified lessees.
Do sandwiches grow on trees? No. But wood does. And wood, when lit on fire, turns meats into smoked meats. And smoked meats in the hands of an Arby's person make sandwiches. So in a way, we were wrong earlier. Sandwiches do grow on trees. Arby's Smokehouse Sandwiches. They're your new favorite fruits. Arby's, we have the meat.
Main Street is filled with hopes and dreams. The only thing you need is the right partner. The beacon of light that shines, that says we are in this together. That is Beacon Bank. Locally owned and community committed. They understand what you need. And they are your personal answer. Your friend in business and in life. Allow the folks at Beacon Bank to be a part of your life because they make dreams come true. Beacon Bank, it's a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender.
Looking for a nice, big, juicy rack of ribs?
Fabulous chops, huge steaks, and the Buddy Bowl? Then J.D. Hoyt's is the place for you. Hoyt's opened in 1983, and Mike Andrews and his partner John White have kept this Minnesota tradition at the top of the food chain. Managing owner Pat Montague gives us a tour.
At J.D. Hoyt's, enjoy a relaxed atmosphere, great food, friendly service, private dining room, second-to-none happy hour, and great outdoor dining, just blocks from the new ballpark.
Located at 394 in North Washington, locally owned, nationally known, Hoyt's.
Stopping by J.D. Hoyt's, coming downtown for a ball game. J.D. Hoyt's. Got a special something going on, go to J.D. Hoyt's. Say hi to Pat and the gang because they've got it going on. J.D. Hoyt's in downtown Minneapolis. Welcome back to the Sports Show. So, Louis, what I was going to ask you was, if they've established that the higher-end players for Chicago are better than the higher-end players for the Wild, how do you bridge that gap if you're the Wild?
Well, you got to develop your own. You're not going to get too many through free agency because you don't have the room in a salary cap to get superstars. You got to hope that some of the kids you're developing turn out to be top-rung players.
But you're talking about really top-rung, not just being good players.
Yeah, but you know, it's not just the best players, a couple of best players going to win alone. You got to have a supporting cast because they can't play the whole game. So they got to have more depth, deeper depth. They got to have better goaltending.
But aren't they pretty good in all those other areas? I mean, they got depth. They got a lot of guys.
But they need some goal scoring. They got to score goals when they haven't done that yet.
You know, you got a great general manager, Scotty Bowman's kid. And Scotty Bowman, one of my favorite people, he'd come to town, and the guy that owned the Montreal Canadiens was the guy with the liquor. What was his name?
You mean George Gillette before?
Huh?
Which one are you talking about? No, not Molson. It's the.
Anyway.
No, I know you mean.
The point of the story is.
Yeah. And I'd always have dinner with those guys when they come to town. I got to know Scotty very well. And the best story about Scotty is he coaches the St. Louis team. They get expansion, and they beat Montreal the first game they ever played them. So I never saw a pro hockey game in my life. So I go out there to the Met to see what's going on. And who was the coach for the Montreal?
Toe Blake? Which one? I mean, what time?
Joe Blake.
You got to give him somewhat specific here.
Joe Blake's coach, no pucks. Up and down the ice.
He was a tough coach, huh?
Up and down the ice.
All those coaches used to do that.
Yeah.
That was a regular thing they did. Right.
Yeah. What would you do, Lavelle? Make trades? What?
I don't know. I think I look to make trades. They got to sign Dubnyk if he's definitely going to be part of the future.
That won't be hard.
It shouldn't be.
He hurt himself in the playoffs for money-wise. And he's not going to get as much as he would have got before the second round of the playoffs.
And as he said, you know, it's about building depth, too. So you got to look to make trades to see if you can land someone. And maybe if they got a couple of prospects, they can move and bring in someone who can come right here and contribute right away.
But, you know, the funny thing is, Louis, when goal scorers has been identified as a problem for this team for some time, to an extent. So Pominville and Vanek were supposed to be those guys that added that. Where are they falling short?
Before we go any further, the Wild scored well during the year. This is the most they've ever scored.
They scored more goals than the Blackhawks.
I'm talking about to get to Chicago.
No, but still, so their goal scoring didn't hurt them during the year. It was in the playoffs, and you're right. Vanek and Pominville came up short from what you would expect from them, because they're great track records of scoring goals all the time. And now you just hope it's an aberration, because, and for Vanek it's 2 years in a row because he hasn't scored in about 17 playoff games, and he should. And he's got to just get to the mindset to think score rather than be a setup man. Vanek has to score goals, and he can if he thinks scoring.
Wait a second, let's get the definite opinion here.
The salary cap is a problem for the Wild, too, isn't it?
Every team that's a good team right now. Every team's a good team's going to have some good players coming up, and your salary cap probably won't move unless the players want to enforce. No, they're going to enforce an inflator. It'll probably go down to $68.5 million because the Canadian dollar is down so far. So all the revenue is coming in the Canadian rinks there, plus the Rogers TV cable. That's worth less. So every team that's a good team has got players coming up, and they got to look at the cap real closely, see how they want to operate.
What were you going to say, Sid?
Well, Chuck Fletcher's pretty sharp. He did a heck of a job. His big problem is to sign a goaltender. But everything you read and you hear about... We just
went over that.
Huh?
Louis says that won't be hard for them to fit him in under the cap.
Well, maybe somebody else will offer more money. You know, one thing, money is what counts with these professional athletes. It's not where in most cases.
I agree, except when you take Dubnyk and he comes here and he plays very well and he fits in real well, and then the second playoff round he was okay. He wasn't superlative. Crawford was better. And so now you have to remember, other teams looking at him are going to say, is Dubnyk going to play like he did all year long or in the playoffs? So they're not going to be inclined to give him as much money as you might think. There's not a lot of teams looking for it. On top of that, Dubnyk likes where he's at. He likes the fact that he had success here. He's comfortable here. A lot of guys take less if they're in a place
they feel they can win.
Yeah, we've seen it with Herbeck. We've seen it with Parisi. We've seen it with Puckett. So it happens, and it'll happen with Dubnyk.
That's one big advantage. They'll start the season with him.
Yeah.
They'll have a goaltender to start the season.
And Kemper's not a bad bet.
Yeah, right. And hopefully Kemper comes back to play the way we've seen him play early last year.
Lavelle, all things being equal, would you like to see a salary cap like that in baseball?
I like to see, yes, I would like to see more of a harder ceiling, because the local television revenue is getting out of control in baseball. There's teams teams are getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year now for their local television revenue. I don't think the Twins are getting close to that. And,
and they're getting a lot more than they used to, but
the disparity is now.
Yeah, what's happened is Major League Baseball has really figured out the value to these regional cable networks, what their baseball team offers with 162 dates.
Right.
And so they're able to extract a whole lot more money now that they figured it out.
Right. You know, the Dodgers and Yankees, I think their TV deals cancel out their payroll, you know?
Right there. So then every ticket you sell is profit almost, right?
Exactly.
I bet the next hockey television contract will be the best I ever had.
Oh, yeah, that won't be hard because it's not great right now.
Yeah. Not too many TV contracts go down the next time they're
Yeah, they should get a much better one.
Take a break, come back, stay with us.
Ever wonder, why do I hear but not understand? Scientists at Cambridge University discovered the answer. Inside your cochlea, there are thousands of tiny hearing hair cells. Poor hearing occurs when regions of these hair cells die. Amplifying a dead region with hearing aids makes you hear worse, not better. The result of this study is a hearing clarity breakthrough. Using standard test equipment, dead regions of your cochlea are identified. Then, a new type of frequency-shaping hearing aid is programmed to bypass the dead regions. Only your usable hearing hair cells receive amplification. Brilliant. A local study is underway. 100 citizens with hearing problems are needed to receive this testing and then wear the tiny device for 10 days, recording your results. Call now to see if you qualify. Volunteers may keep the product at a special discount if they desire. Don't miss this opportunity. Call now.
Thanks for watching CW-23.
Welcome back to the Sports Show. Mike Max, Lavelle E. Neal, Lou Nanny, and Sid Hartman. Minnesota
Hockey
Twins
experts
lost today to the Cleveland Indians, but they had a good week, Lavelle. Tell me, it's hard to get your arms around this because their batting averages aren't that high. Hunter gets hot. They get a little this and that, some good pitching, and yet they've been winning and winning at a clip that we never anticipated.
Well, the offense picked up, definitely. I mean, they averaged over 6 wins a game on their homestand.
But a lot of it was just big hits, more so than...
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And then they went to Cleveland and won the first 2 out of 3. I think the offense has been a factor. I think they're still one of the leading scoring teams in this month so far. The bullpens pitched a little bit better than I thought. I thought that was going to be a major cause for alarm. But Aaron Thompson's been effective. Blaine Boyer, after a shaky start, has been solid. Casey Feen was good until he landed on a DL, so he should come back soon and step right back into being the 8th inning guy. And you got Perkins closing. So the bullpen's been better. The offense has been great. Starting pitch has actually been a little disappointing. You know, it took Phil Hughes like 4 or 5 starts to get a win. Pelfrey's been a surprise. Nolasco's been a disappointment.
Gibbs has been great.
Yeah, and May's been up and down. So
and today, if Rosario catches the 1 ball to get May out of the inning, it's still 1-1 instead of 6-1.
And what we have seen is there's some crummy teams in baseball. Oakland's not a good team. The White Sox are terrible, and Seattle's not that great. And the Twins were able to beat all 3 of those teams.
I think there's one factor that's very important. For 9 years, Molitor has been on the road with all these young players. He knows all their strengths, he knows all their weaknesses, and I think they've done a fantastic job of teaching. I really do. I really think those players listen to him, and it's a different situation. They got this dancing at the end of the game when they win. I mean,
you like that?
Well, I think there's something about the spirit on that team and the morale on the team. I got nothing against Gardy, but Gardy never went in the clubhouse after they lost, and I think the pitching coach. I never was a big Rick Anderson guy.
I thought you liked him.
Yeah, really. Talk about changing the opinion.
What?
Yeah, I remember you not liking Rick Anderson.
No, but this guy, I can't look up things on the internet, but I got a guy that does. He has developed practically all those pitchers on the Tampa team that they built.
Neil Allen.
Yeah. You think a coach can make a big difference, Louis, on any team? I mean, in a position coach like that?
He can, especially if if he's a good teacher and he can teach these guys. You take a guy like Kevin McHale, what he did with some of the basketball players he has. A guy that can impart the knowledge he's got and help kids develop. It's a big difference.
I can't get a feel for this team, Lavelle, in the clubhouse. You spent more time with them than any of us do. I can't tell you because you've got a lot of different nationalities and a lot of different kind of blasé personalities mixed in. Does it have a personality to it?
More than one player. Maybe 4 or 5 had told me that Torrey Hunter has changed the entire dynamic of that clubhouse. Just with his positive outlook, his ability to reach out to different people, his ability to teach the game and kind of impart some knowledge.
And by the way, he's leading by example too right now.
And one of the first-year players, he was telling me the other day about how, you feel comfortable. You don't feel like you walk on the eggshells around the veterans here. You feel like you can be yourself.
And
here.
They used to.
I guess he was comparing it to past times, so I guess that is the case. But Torrey's had a great effect. I will, when it's a historic moment here, I will agree with Sid about the fact that Mauldin was in the minors for so many years and has seen a lot of these guys come up the system. I do think that has been an advantage he's played.
Yeah, they have an interpreter now too, don't they?
That's for you.
Yeah, they do. They do, but the interpreter's not there all the time. But like Rudy Hernandez, the hitting coach, can interpret for us. There is someone in the baseball communications department who's bilingual, and if she will come in if we're in the jam as well.
Right, and when Sid's asking a question, then she explains what the question was.
That's one thing. I wish I'd have taken the Spanish, because those guys are cutting you up in Spanish, and you don't know what they're saying.
You just assume they're cutting you up. Maybe they're saying good things.
You should have saw Sid. His interview with Kenneth Vargas the other day was quality entertainment to watch unfold.
Well, it was equally as good when he approached Nolasco and then
That's right.
Mr. Yankee, meaning Phil Hughes.
That's right.
Take a break, come back.
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Case Law, for all your legal needs, not your typical law firm. Griffin Bail Bonds. It's better to know us and not need us than to need us and not know us. And Edge Marketing and Promotional Products. From T-shirts to swag, featuring over 100,000 products. We can put your logo on anything.
If you guys could go on a free shopping spree anywhere, where would you go? I'd go to the grocery store. Pizza, ice cream. I'd go shop for clothes. You know where I go? I'd go to Ticket King. Ticket King! At Ticket King, you can buy great seats for the Vikings, the Wild, the Timberwolves, and of course the Twins. We love the Twins! Yep, this is where I go. Vikings, Twins, Wild, Timberwolves, Gophers, theater, and concerts too. For details, go to TicketKingOnline.com. Any ticket, anytime, anywhere. It's the real thing. It's Ticket King. Right, Dad?
Couldn't have said it any better myself.
That's for sure.
You're watching CW-23.
Main Street is filled with hopes and dreams. The only thing you need is the right partner. The beacon of light that shines, that says we are in this together. That is Beacon Bank. Locally owned and community committed. They understand what you need. And they are your personal answer. Your friend in business and in life. Allow the folks at Beacon Bank to be a part of your life because they make dreams come true. Beacon Bank, it's a member of the FDIC and an equal housing lender. Beacon Bank, responsive, reliable, reassuring, and able to partner with you and live in the American dream. Stop on by business banking and then some. Beacon Bank, a beacon of light and hope in your economic future. Welcome back to the Sports Show. Go down to Brady Gate. We'll rifle through these last few here in the last segment. Brady Gate mean much to you?
Well, I'm just mad at Brady because I think if he came out and said, look, yes, I like the ball a certain weight, and I asked the guys to take some air out from time to time. This would have been blown over. But now that the fact that it's taken so long and he refused to cooperate, it's probably going to lead to a suspension and maybe his team losing draft picks. And it's stupid. It's just a stupid thing.
You remember when you used to sneak in the locker rooms and measure guys' sticks and pads in the afternoon when they weren't around?
I'd have my equipment men do that. That way you can call them for an illegal stick.
But you just save that chip? Is that what you do?
Yeah, for late in the game. If you need a penalty called on them, yeah.
I think there's something to the Brady thing. Brady, the way he grips that ball compared to Peyton Manning and all those other guys, you can't convince me that he didn't have a smaller ball.
Bernie Kukar, who is the head referee, says, I got no idea how it gets there. He says, I inspected every ball. They were sealed. Yeah. And you inspect the air pressure in every one. It goes out. He says there's maybe a 2 or 3 minute window there where somebody could really be working. But he said we also use balls, the same balls for both teams.
How big of an advantage is it?
243-page report. There's got to be something going on.
Well, how much of an advantage is it? I mean, is it like doctoring a baseball? Is it like putting cork in a bat? I mean, I don't know. I remember the New York Times ran a story when this first broke, and 3 or 4 former quarterbacks said, yeah, we did it all the time. So it may be one of those things that was going on, and people just didn't want to make a big stink over. So.
Wasn't there trouble with baseball at one time?
Was there what?
Somebody was fooling with baseballs at one time.
It happens every last year, a Yankees pitcher was found with tar under his belt because he was getting pine tar.
Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
What's the #1 thing in hockey? Goalie pads? Is that what you're looking at?
Goalie pads.
He looks big.
Well, now they make them so big you don't have to worry about illegal pads. But back in the old days, Tony Esposito used to have a net between his legs. He'd go down, stop a shot, and his legs were open. The puck would bounce back. You wonder what happened.
And you never see it?
Well, they made him take it out after, finally people complained. But he used to cut the sides
Free
of the
video
pads.
kind of, huh?
Oh, Tony would pull all kind of stuff. He'd always cut the pads and add 2 inches down the side, sew it back up, and before the next game, if they're coming to measure, he'd take the cotton batting out, sew them back so they looked regular. You always had stuff like that.
Timberwolves, what do you think here in terms of a draft pick? And does it matter if they get #1 overall or not?
Well, Flip went to Europe. He's got some ideas. They got one player that they own the draft right to. If they can afford
he better be really, really good.
He's getting big money, but he's really good. And he saw some pretty good players in Europe, and we'll see what happens. I think they'll be a lot better next year.
You know, I'm fine with if they get #1 and get Jahlil Okafor, I'm fine with that. If you get the Karl Anthony Towns kid from Kentucky, I'm fine with that either way. But they need multiple players to get them over the hump here. So one draft is not going to change this franchise. They're going to have to make multiple moves. So Flip's got to be able to make maybe a couple trades and do some other things to move this thing forward.
I agree. You, Louis?
Well, basketball is the one sport that you can get 2, 3 players and transform the whole team.
Problem is, if you don't, you stay right in the bottom.
You stay right down. No. But right now they got 1 in Wiggins. They need 2 more.
Okay, we're at that juncture of the show that everybody waits for, and kind of the favorite segment has become on this show. We go to Sid on Sid, his chance to pontificate and give some thoughts, maybe something that he's processed during the week that we didn't see. The naked eye does not interpret it the same way a veteran reporter.
I think the Vikings got the best draft they ever had because they stole some players.
Well,
they
you don't
sold
know
the
that.
safety from Virginia. They sold that defensive linebacker from UCLA. I think they got 4 or 5 players who had injuries that are okay. Sheldon Burns did a fantastic job on working these guys over, and you watch. This draft's going to be outstanding.
What more do you need to know? Goodbye, everybody.
The Sports Show is brought to you in part by Cambria, makers of quality quart surfaces. Ticket King. For the best price on tickets anywhere, try Ticket King. And Soundpoint Audiology. Life is worth hearing.